Now, in other news this week, the leader of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage, took to the stage in the EU Parliament on Tuesday to give a triumphant speech. It was his first appearance there since British voters chose to leave the bloc in a referendum.
Good morning. Funny, isn't it? Funny, isn't it? Isn't it funny? You know, when I came here 17 years ago and I said that I wanted to lead a campaign to get Britain to leave the European Union, you all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
Well, in response to that, Nigel Farage was confronted by European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, who lashed out at the UKIP leader. The verbal attack, though, did come as something of a surprise after a warm welcome Juncker gave him before the session.
That's the last time you are applauding here. And to some extent, I'm really surprised that you are here. You were fighting for the exit. The British people voted in favour of the exit. Why are you here?
Peter Oliver caught up with the UKIP leader and asked him what's ahead.
What happens next for Nigel Farage?
Well, I've got a plan, but I'm not in government. So we are a little bit beholden on the Conservative Party at the moment. But look, actually, what Mr Juncker said this morning was perfectly sensible and quite right. Let's not wait forever.
I never thought I'd hear you say
well, there you are. It's interesting, isn't it? But I mean, no, we voted to leave. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's trigger Article 50 and let's go into grown-up negotiations about trade.
What happens if they say, yes, you can have trade with the rest of Europe? However, in order to do that, you have to do the same thing as Norway, as Switzerland. You have to pay your dues and you have to allow freedom of movement. How's that going to go down with those people that you convinced that you were going to be able to shut off immigration from the EU to Great Britain?
That proposition is nil point. You know, we're just not going to do that. No, goodbye, go away. I mean, look, if this didn't work, okay, if we reach the worst case scenario of no deal being on offer, no deal is better for us than the rotten deal we've got now, and very bad for them. I mean, seriously bad for them.
Meanwhile, a petition calling for a second referendum on Britain's EU membership has received over 4 million signatures, although many do doubt its credibility. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Europe, Austria could soon hold its own referendum on EU membership. At least that's what some of the country's media are suggesting, that after a top court there overturned May's presidential election results after irregularities were found in postal voting. So there'll now be another vote, giving a second chance to a right-wing candidate who lost the poll by the narrowest of margins. He spoke exclusively with RT.
Ich hoffe, dass eine Abstimmung in Österreich nicht notwendig sein wird.
I hope that an EU membership referendum will not be necessary because the EU will develop in a positive way. However, I am convinced that the Austrian people will not tolerate Turkey becoming an EU member and Austria losing more power to Brussels. It is important to consider the will of the people.
Ich habe großen Respekt vor der Entscheidung der Briten.
I respect the decision made by UK citizens. The democratic process should be respected. However, there is a lesson for the EU to learn, which is that Europe should be for the people, not for the bureaucrats. That means we need better agreements and clearer distinctions between the powers of the EU and its members. Citizens should be involved in this process.
Ich habe den Eindruck, dass bei der Entscheidung der Briten die Frage...
I think that the migration issue had a big impact on Britain's decision. EU members can't decide by themselves who should be allowed in their countries, who gets social benefits and who doesn't. I find it strange that a person who arrives in a country is immediately entitled to all the same rights as someone who's been there their entire life.
Well, Hoffa's right-wing Freedom Party is currently the third strongest in Austria, and it's gaining ground at every election. It's now been further empowered too by the Brexit vote, with similar Eurosceptic parties across the bloc also getting a boost.
Europa der Bürokraten.
The whims of unelected bureaucrats.
Bureaucratie européenne.
Votre Union européenne technocratique est...
Unionsbureaucratie.
A French referendum on EU membership is a democratic necessity.
I believe a discussion about a referendum will begin in Germany, and the Alternative for Germany party supports this idea.
This is the beginning of a new era of democratic politics, heading in the direction of greater democracy and even more democracy.
You're watching the Weekly here on RT International. There's still plenty to come this hour, including Turkey apologises for the downing of a Russian jet last year, saying it is ready to pay compensation for the incident. We'll have the details on that, plus other stories too, after a quick break.